Okay, so in the previous video, we just finished deploying our APISpec to the sandbox runtime group and did the validation there. So in this video, we're going to go with the last pipeline, which is going to promote and or publish our API to the Dev runtime group in Konnect. Once we get that published, we're then also going to go back into Insomnia and do the validation. So if you're following along in the Git repository, we're on step 4. So we're going to go ahead and execute. So yeah, before we go into the execution, let's talk about what's going to happen in this pipeline. It's pretty similar to the sandbox one, but we're not going to do any governance. We're just going to clean it up for the dev environment, the deck itself. We're actually also going to prep the APISpec for the dev portal as well. The reason being is that we want to remove, if we take a look at the APISpec, we want to remove all of these customizations in there. We don't find it as best practice to be in there because the dev portal is where we have our APISpec documentation, and we really don't need our customizations to be client facing. So there's that. And then once we've done that cleanup, we then we're going to push it up. We're going to execute that deck sync and open up a PR to the dev branch in the APIOps gateway repository. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and copy this command to execute the final pipeline and head over to the terminal. Clean this up, run that. Okay, let's go over to Openshift. I left where I was. Here we go. So we're in the APIOps Gateway project. I'm going to click on this task, or I'm in this pipeline run, and we can see what's going on. So we're fetching the repository. In this case, I'm prepping my deck for the dev runtime group and for the dev portal at the same time. Then we executed the deck seek, so you can see we had some tasks running in parallel. Once that's all ready, now I'm going to create that branch and open up a PR in the APIOps Gateway repository. So we'll just let that finish. Okay, so this pipeline finished, so we're going to move over to the Git repo to see what happened. So a PR was open, but I had instantly already closed it, and it was the one into the dev branch. So let's take a look at that real quick. I'm going to take a look at the files changed. So we still have our original disputes APISpec that we committed to sandbox. Then we've got this second file is the deck config, but it's actually been updated for dev. So it's got the dev runtime group label in there. And also you can see that the backend has been converted, has been shifted over to the Kubernetes service that we're actually running in our ROSA cluster. And then we've also stripped out the mocking plugin has been taken out as well. And then we have one more file. We have another APISpec, but this one has been very specifically catered for the dev portal where we intend on publishing our documentation. And one of the two main changes that we talked about is one of them we didn't mention is actually we updated the server because this server needs to be pointing at our gateway running in Openshift. So this is our Konnect-Dev gateway load balancer. And then the second thing is what we already discussed is we moved any customizations, so that custom plugin configurations has all been stripped out. So this is ready to be published to the dev portal. And then when I was ready, I merged in the commit and deleted the branch. Okay, so we should be able to go into Insomnia and go, well, actually, before we go into Insomnia, let's actually go into Konnect and test and read what's going on. So make sure you're in the dev runtime group. Let's look at the gateway service. We still have a disputes gateway service, but now the host has been changed. It's pointing to the Kubernetes service running in Openshift. We also have routes. The routes have the options method on them. That's been the one tweak. The reason being is that we need those enabled for the dev portal. If we look at the plugins, the only thing that's really changed is remove the mocking plugin has been cleaned up, so it's no longer listed here. And actually, just for transparency, we have the cores plugin and the options enabled in the route for us to work with the dev portal that we'll do in the next video. And so that is what Konnect looks like. Now, let's go into Insomnia and test our API. So make sure for your environment that you've got the dev runtime group selected. And now when you got that selected, we can go ahead and execute this first request. And what we should be able to see is that the responses changed slightly because now we're pointing to the actual microservice running in the disputes dev namespace, right? So this is actual data being returned from the microservice. If we go to the second endpoint and make this call, it is intentionally, you should have gotten a 404, and this is just kind of a quip, you know, it's microservice, it's in dev, it's found a bug. So yeah, this is actually working as expected. Okay, perfect. So with that, just to summarize what we've done so far, so I'm going to go to the slide. Just to summarize what we've done so far is that we've gone end to end with the APISecOps solution. We started out as developers updating the APISpec in Insomnia. We then committed that to source control and executed 3 Tekton pipelines. One was really for internal review, was the first one, and to open up a PR. And then the second one was to take that PR, execute some governance assessment, and then prep that spec and deploy it to the sandbox runtime group in Konnect. We then went into Insomnia and then were able to hit this gateway. And we have no backend microservice, right? It was the mock and plugin configuration that was actually returning responses. Once we finished testing in Sandbox, we then executed the 3rd Tekton pipeline, which then took our spec and deck, cleaned them up, and then deployed them to the dev runtime group and deployed that API spec itself as documentation to Service Hub and Dev Portal. We haven't gotten to this yet. We'll discuss this in the next video. Once we'd finished this deployment, this Tekton pipeline, we then went back into Insomnia and hit this gateway. We were able to hit the backend disputes microservice running in the disputes dev namespace and saw that bug. Okay, so that's it for this video. In the next video, we're actually going to finish up with the documentation piece. We're going to go into Service Hub and Konnect and go ahead and prep and publish our spec to the dev portal. So I will see you over there.